You're listening to Little Green Cheese, episode 96. Well, welcome back, Curd Nerds. I'm Gavin Weber, and this podcast is where you can learn about cheese making at home. Today we've got a lovely guest all the way from Cambodia in Southeast Asia. His name is John Wilson, and he's part of a duo who run a cheese factory in Kampot in Cambodia, home of the world famous Kampot pepper. Anyway, let's have a listen to what John has done in Cambodia. He has, with his partner, created a cheese-making factory where there was none before, and they make lots of French-style cheeses in Southeast Asia, where there is a growing market, thankfully. Cheese is not a big part of the culture in Southeast Asia. However, John and his partner has indeed launched, and a lot of the customers at the moment are expats, as you'll hear and see in the podcast. All right, over to the interview with John. So here he is. Hello, John. How are you?
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
No problems at all. Now, what's that accent?
English originally, but I grew up in Cambodia, so it might have faded over time.
Yeah, I found it a little bit hard to pick, but yeah, lovely to see you, mate. You run a artisan cheese factory. What's it called?
It's called Cavignac in Wilton.
Yeah.
Cavignac is my business partner, Chris Cavignac. He arrived a couple of years ago, and we had this chat like out of nowhere, and like he needed to find something to do. I had looked up how to make cheeses before, and like we just it was a perfect match basically.
Yeah, fantastic. So where's the factory? Is the factory in Kampot?
Yep, yeah, the factory is in Kampot, but the farm is about 100 kilometers away from here.
All right.
Like even sorting out the delivery process for the milk and everything is a massive challenge, especially here. Like
So
there's no transportation.
Yeah, so there's no infrastructure to transport that would normally be like we would have here in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
So no milk tankers and stuff like that.
No, well they have for the farm, but we don't buy enough milk currently to afford to use it. So at the moment we have small milk containers, like 50-liter milk jars.
Yep.
And some insulating boxes, and we basically put them in a taxi. He goes to the farm, picks up the milk, and brings it back in the boxes.
That's ingenious, mate. Where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So, what kind of cheeses do you make?
Camembert, Brie, like a lot of French style cheeses. My business partner is French, and I grew up a bit in France before coming to Cambodia, so it had a big influence on my eating needs.
Yeah.
So like Camembert, Brie, Tom, raclette, Saint Marcelin. We've experimented also with feta and mozzarella, but they don't prove to be as popular. Our most popular is the Camembert so far. We're making a lot of that.
Yeah.
We called it Camembert de Kampot.
Right. Lovely. Nice.
So and
you don't get a cease and desist from Camembert de Normandy?
Yeah, exactly.
I know all about that.
That was so funny. The cheese and desist cheese recipe.
Yeah, it was really cool. So all those French-style cheeses, you said they're popular there. Is that because was Cambodia part of the French colony?
Yeah, it was.
World War II.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think it changed mostly after the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia, about 40 years ago. And like a lot of the culture from Cambodia before that it's not vanished. It's still there, but it's not as apparent anymore. It really had a massive effect on the country, obviously.
Yeah. I've seen the documentaries and that sort of stuff on the terrors that happened during Pol Pot's regime. So yeah,
But at the same time, everywhere, all the Cambodians voted the happiest, the most smiley country in the world, and it's true everywhere you go, everyone's smiling, everyone's happy, and it's a really lovely place to be.
I'm glad. Sounds really good. So as far as the French, if there's any French culture left, but they would love the French style cheeses. Is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's still a lot of French expats here for sure.
So the demand for your product, are you the only sort of French cheesemaker in Cambodia you know of?
Yeah, we are at the moment. There's a local Khmer that learned how to make cheeses in France, I believe, and he's up in Siem Reap making Italian style cheeses like mozzarella and burrata. He makes a lot of burrata, and then we make mainly the French style cheeses at the moment.
Oh, fantastic!
And there's only the two of us in the whole of Cambodia. It's a very new opportunity to be able to do this because for a long time there's been no dairy farms in Cambodia. It's not part of the local diets at all. So it's been introduced a couple of years ago, and slowly.
So
it's going. Yeah.
So the dairy that you get your milk from, what sort of cows? What breed of cows are they?
They're Frisian Holstein.
Right.
They're imported from Australia.
Oh.
Yeah. They have about 500 cows there.
Yeah.
And it's like a state of the art farm. Most of everything is automated. There's as little human interaction as possible with the cows. But even getting the milk in the beginning was a challenge because they didn't want to sell raw milk to individuals.
Right.
So we were able to buy about 40 liters the first time for our first experiment.
Yeah.
Which was only about the first one we ever did was only 4 camemberts, following your recipe, your raw milk.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And before that, me and my mate didn't really know much about cheese. The good thing in Cambodia is that you have the freedom to have an idea and then execute it without having to worry so much about permissions, licenses, all this. Obviously, we still follow all the hygiene standards.
Sure.
But there's no one that comes and enforces it, and it just makes it easier for every type of business venture. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So why did you start making cheese in the first place? So you say you and your mate make the cheese, right? Mm-hmm. Why? Why did you start?
Well, when it comes down to it, it's basically my love. Me and my business partner's love of cheese and the crazy price of cheese here, because there's 45% import tax on cheeses coming into Cambodia.
Yeah.
So it's like a luxury to be able to have cheese. And we saw the opportunity to buy the milk and make it ourselves, and it was perfect for us.
Yeah.
And we would like to also. We're trying to get the price down as cheap as possible. For example, with the Camembert, it started at $12.50 for a 250 gram wheel.
Yeah.
And now we're down to $8.50, and then we're trying to get down to $5 eventually to be able to make it not such a luxurious product.
Yeah. Well, look over here, even recent Camembert here made by artisan cheesemakers is going to cost us about $12 Australian as well. So, so I think your price point's probably okay. It depends on the demographic of the country. I know there's, as far as expats go, they've probably got a bit more cash, maybe than the locals. So,
up in the capital, also for sure in Phnom Penh.
Yeah.
There's a lot more higher paying jobs up there. In Kampot, for example, it's pretty hard to make money, even if you're Western, unless you're working online. So to be able to make cheese and sell it, and it's like it's a dream.
I bet it is. So where do you sell it?
A lot of restaurants, a couple of supermarkets at the moment, but it's still very low scale. We've only recently got a cold room, which we're in the process of installing at the moment. But otherwise, we're just using fridges, regular fridges,
Yeah.
and with small humidifiers and temperature regulators. So the amount we could produce is very limited at the moment.
So you're hoping to scale up once you get that cold room up and running, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So when you make a batch, how many liters in total do you make a batch, and what sort of vat do you have?
So even the vats, we have they're about 50 liters. They're really small ones. So we have to heat the milk in small amounts, then add it together, make sure it's the right temperature, and if not, correct it. And like the whole process it's already quite a complicated process, but this is just adding so many more steps to it, which we're trying to. But it's just the beginning, like it's the same as it is with everything. There's always going to be hiccups along the way that you have to smoothen out.
Yeah, exactly. So how many years have you been producing the cheese for sale now?
We started just over a year ago now. For like the first 4 camemberts that we made were about 14, 15 months ago.
Oh, okay. And you've gone from there. So
and now we're producing. We produce once every fortnight, and it's about 350 liters we order of raw milk.
Oh, okay.
And we divide it up into camemberts, brie, tom, or raclette, and ricotta at the end of the day.
Of course. You'd be crazy not to make the ricotta and sell that as well.
Yeah, for sure. An interesting thing I've learned about whey recently is that you can actually turn it into bioethanol.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So we're actually looking into that to reduce our waste, and you can use it directly in a motorbike. Sorry, I know this is not cheese related, but
No, that's fine. Keep going.
So yeah, so we're gonna start experimenting with that. At the moment, we're just making ricotta with the whey, and then unfortunately, we just throw it out like hundreds of liters. But it's definitely been a good year.
Yeah, there's some companies here in Tasmania in Australia that actually make gin with the whey. So so they make that as an alcoholic product and sell that as well. So they got a license to make so they get the whey from the local cheesemaker and then make gin out of it as well.
Oh wow, that's really interesting.
So
have you ever tried that?
Yes, I have. Delicious. So nice. A nice juniper berry flavour to it. Your typical gin flavour, nice gin flavour. So yeah, it's delicious. You couldn't tell it was made from whey.
I'll have to look that up too. It sounds like an interesting experiment.
Indeed, and I'm not sure what yeast they use. I would have no idea. I know they have to then distill it to produce the gin and then add flavourings to the gin. But it's something to think about if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Especially on like small scale, you have to try and make something with whatever you have instead of wasting it.
Exactly. Especially at that small scale, like you said, the last thing you want to do is throw away a byproduct like whey. So as far as challenges go in your production, when you first started off, has the production methodology changed from when you first started and you've learned stuff as you go along? Tell us about that journey.
Well, there's been so many challenges along the way. It's hard to really to really say all of them. I guess the biggest challenge was at first getting the milk in the first place.
Yeah.
Because after we got the first 40 liters from the farm, they wouldn't let us buy any more. Basically, they were saying the cows were dry, even though they had 500 cows.
Yeah.
So we figured that they probably just didn't want to sell to individuals. But luckily, a friend of mine that has a spa here in Kampot, the owner of the farm actually goes to his spa, and he introduced me, and I brought him a cheese plate of the cheeses that I had made from his milk, and that like won him over completely, and he was
Oh,
like, he
fantastic.
was very happy.
That's the best.
Um,
Yeah.
but also cross contamination is like we had a little hiccup in the beginning also with the B linens bacteria.
Yeah.
We're on that. Um, we just used the same fridge as we had used for Tom, and it started growing all over the camemberts basically. Although
Yes.
it didn't, it was still delicious.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't camembert.
Yeah. You could just call it some other kind of white wine cheese.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And there's been a couple also where the camembert for some reason has dried out a bit. Oh yeah. So yeah, that was a one-time deal. We just didn't realize how easy the cross contamination happened basically. And we had another issue like this when we first received the Rock 40
Yeah.
mold. We still haven't done any experiments with that, but I just opened the cap inside the cheese making room, and then a couple days later, a few of the camemberts inside the fridge started having dots of blue mold on them. And we were like,
Yeah.
whoa, it's like it just spread. So I've driven down the road. I'm on the riverside now. Just
Alrighty. So you've got ample battery and better reception.
yeah, I'm using
Alright.
the hostel's Wi-Fi.
Oh, I love your work, mate. Yeah. Alrighty. So we talked about challenges that you had. So what are some of the best successes and unexpected cheeses that you've managed to produce?
Um, the best cheese we produce is probably the brie. So we use we get the milk in the quantity, and then we skim part of it to make some masala, and then with that cream we use it for the brie.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
this is actually something we were doing wrong for a while because we were buying UHT cream, very expensive also here, and
Yeah.
then but it was giving the brie a really sour, bitter flavor at the end, and a lot of people, it was just too strong for them. Like
Yeah.
it was still pretty decent, but it was just like a really strong camembert basically. And now that we've realized what the problem was, and that we're adding the cream from the skimmed milk for the San Masala,
Mm.
that's changed everything, and it's absolutely beautiful now.
Well done, mate. That's a great troubleshooting solution.
Also, like it's pretty cool to see locals eating more and more cheese. They have this thing here called pohok, which is like a fermented fish basically, but everyone calls it Cambodian cheese. It's got a really strong, pungent smell, and they love that.
And it's a fish.
So like there's a slow transition to cheeses also.
From fish to cheese. That's
It's basically fish cheese, yeah. It's like you get all the fish, put it in a jar, and then bury it basically for a year.
oh, it'd be smelly, wouldn't it?
It smells very strong, yeah.
Anyway, now before I lost you last time, you were talking about cross contamination issues.
Oh yeah.
Have you managed to figure that out and fix it all up?
So we're taking a lot more care now when we're using the different bacterias, and everything is separated properly. So we have a fridge, a fridge per type of cheese, basically.
Yeah, funny. That's exactly what I suggested as I lost you. I thought, yeah, use one cheese per type of one fridge per type of cheese, and
Yeah,
that'll
exactly.
fix that issue. And the good thing is, the different generations of the bacteria will give you a unique flavour to your type of cheese. So you'll have, even though it's contaminated in that fridge, you'll get that amazing flavour that will just continue to develop with those cheeses.
Yeah, definitely. There's especially with like Tom style cheeses,
Mm.
where when you continue using the same boards, the bacteria and everything starts developing in the board itself, as long as you don't use like soap, actual soap. We wash everything with hot water, vinegar, and then dry it in the sun,
Yeah,
and then put it away quickly after it's dried.
yeah,
But by doing that, the bacteria and everything of the cheese develops over time, and you get a really unique
Mm.
um, type of bacteria that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, indeed, and especially when using raw milk as well, that would add to the flavour profile. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's also another thing that we didn't realize in the beginning. Like very amateur mistake, but sometimes we were putting the same amount of cultures inside the raw milk, and instead of taking about 20 or 40% off,
Yeah.
and they were becoming very, very strong also very quickly.
Yeah.
So there's been loads of trial and error. Like I think we've thrown away maybe about 20 kilos of cheese in total
Ooh,
just because
it was too strong.
because of mistakes. Yeah,
Look, you got to learn.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
I don't know if you were watching Ruth, the lady from San Francisco. She was talking about a 60% failure rate she had,
Oh yeah,
and she just kept going and learning as she went along. So yeah, it seems
yeah,
like
for
you
sure.
guys are doing the same thing.
Oh yeah, but yeah, so persistence is key. Like if you do something wrong, then do it again and do it right.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Learn from
like
your mistakes. Don't do the same thing over and over.
yeah, exactly. Also, this is like with the notes, like was it Tracy? I'm sorry, I'm terrible with name. The last interview you had?
Yes, from Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I lost my train of thought there.
Anything?
Oh, so like persistent. Oh no, sorry, my train of thought is gone, man.
That's okay. Uh,
uh,
no, you're right. So when you do make changes, like you have something go wrong, when you make changes, do you just change one thing at a time and then see if that works instead of making 20 changes and then
Yeah, yeah, basically. And also just sitting there and trying to analyze everything we did in case we did something we weren't supposed to. And a lot of the times it is actually that we did something we weren't supposed to because we're making so many different cheeses at the same time.
yeah,
Especially when you take notes. That's what I was going to say. The importance of taking notes so you can know what you did exactly i- is very, very important because both for the best cheeses that you'll have and for the worst ones, you have to know on
mm,
each side.
yeah, exactly. Now, making only small batches, what's your most popular cheese? So you say you make quite a few different French style. So what's the one that just flies off the shelf?
It has to be Camembert. Yeah, Camembert
Yeah,
just flies up. Yeah. Um, and it's the first one we started with. I feel like it's a pretty easy recipe to start with. There's not too many steps. You just have to take care of it well. Um, and that's why we started with that. Also, Camembert is like the staple in France. Like if you go to a
yeah,
house, there's always Camembert.
yeah.
So we have to have it here. I think we must have eaten the most Camembert ever in Cambodia that anyone's ever eaten.
That's fantastic. Hey, as long as you eat your own product, it can't be too bad.
For sure, for sure. And especially here too, it's growing. People are wanting more and more locally made products, whether it be cold cuts or cheeses or alcohol. There's a lot of small artisanal makers that are starting, especially after COVID.
Yeah,
It's hard to make money here in the first place, but after COVID, it was even harder. So a lot of people have turned to making their own products and then selling that, and there's a small community emerging of artisanal food makers of like any description. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really cool. It's very
That
great.
that's fantastic. So as far as your most popular cheese, which is Camembert, uh, how many? I'm trying to think. How many units would you sell on a fortnightly basis?
So at the moment, every production day we make 90 camemberts. So every month we have 180 camemberts.
Right, and and then they sell out, all gone.
Yep, yep.
So are you managing to
Mostly
cover
to
your costs?
restaurants.
Are you managing to cover your costs at the moment?
Not really, not. We're still not making much money. Everything that we make goes straight back into buying milk and buying anything else we need.
Yeah,
But with the new cold room, it's going to help that a lot because we can start producing more and more and more.
yeah. So you're basically just reinvesting back into the business.
Yeah, yeah, basically at the moment.
That's a good way to do it, mate.
Yeah, for sure.
From my personal experience from my own home business, we've been running the e-commerce side of it since 2014, and it was only this year that Kim and I have started to pay ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah, and it does. You know, it depends on how fast you can ramp up, right? If you can ramp up production like you said you can, then you know you should be able to. You know, you should make a living out of it, no
Yeah.
problems at all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're getting that.
Yeah, too
Um,
right.
yeah. It's
So,
definitely been a struggle though. But
yeah,
persistence.
are you having trouble sourcing equipment that is help you make a larger scale?
Yeah, for sure. Like all the commercial cheese making equipment is first of all is expensive in the first place, but then to get here with the transport and then the tax involved on it, it is very difficult.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you trying to source it from China?
well, we have looked, but we like the catalog that we have from Cocar in France, like
Mm.
the biggest cheese machinery makers.
Yeah.
They have equipment that can raise the temperature of the milk by a certain temperature at a certain time. So it makes it so it's like designed for cheese making. And the ones in China, they don't have that technology yet. So it's
Oh,
more manual, a manual process that you would have to do. You would have to heat up 500 liters of milk by a certain temperature at a certain time, which is it sounds very hard.
yeah. Yeah, it's very similar to using a precision cooker at a small scale.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So at the
Yeah,
moment we have to just heat up everything by double boiling it, put it in a bigger container so it's all together, and then go from that.
yeah. Oh, fantastic. The ingenuity you guys are using to help make more cheese is very good.
Cheers.
I'm very pleased that you managed to pull it off.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
No problems at all. So there is a question in the chat, and this is a good one. It says Cambodians are not lactose intolerant.
Oh, that is a good question because it's not in the
The local
daily culture.
diet.
They don't. Yeah, they don't eat any at all. So I guess they must be up to certain points. But I've never heard any problems about it directly from customers.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Although
good.
it's not really a problem that you would you would share, really.
No, true. You don't share that you got a bloated stomach and maybe the runs as well. So they'll just keep eating your cheese. That'll be fine.
Yeah, and we're making a couple of different ways. Like we're making some halloumi with cambot pepper on it, and that's
Lovely.
stuffed with salted pepper, and then on the outside we have the pepper,
Mm.
and that the locals really love that. The cambot pepper is amazing on cheese. The flavor of it.
Is it
It's
a
not.
special type of pepper or?
Yeah, it's world famous. Like especially in France, obviously because of the culture here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a world famous cheese. And it's not too spicy, but the flavor is amazing, especially the salted one.
Yeah. And halloumi made with raw milk is just amazing anyway by itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also I think it's maybe our second biggest seller. Maybe is the halloumi.
What words of encouragement would you give any person that was thinking of starting their own business in a country that doesn't really have a cheese culture?
I feel like it's a little bit easier here just because of the lack of permits required and the licenses and everything.
Mm.
So there's so many challenges that I can't even imagine from a first world. Just because I've grown up here since I was 10, and this is like my normal to me.
Yeah.
But I would say persistence, and if you make a mistake, you don't just give up on that because it's normal that you're gonna make mistakes, and you have to just figure out what you did wrong and do it properly.
Yeah, exactly. And take notes.
They take notes. The notes is so important for sure.
That's fantastic. Great advice. And it's been even with all the technical issues, it's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah,
And,
cheers, man.
It's inspiring to see that you guys are actually giving it a good go.
It's definitely been a challenge. I appreciate your.
No problems at all, mate. All right, we must get together again soon with a better connection and have another
Yeah,
chat.
definitely. Yeah, I would love that. I would love
All
that.
right, no drama. We'll schedule that at a later date, and I'll be in contact. How's that sound?
That sounds amazing, Gavin.
All right,
I
no,
would love it.
maybe your partner can come along and we can have a three-way chat sort of thing.
Definitely. He doesn't speak much English, but I feel like the authenticity is there.
That's okay. You can translate or whatever.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Good on you, mate. All right, thank you, John, for joining us today.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, John, for that interview. It was great. The technical difficulties aside, I managed to get a fairly decent recording out of the interview, and hopefully you learnt a bit about how you can start your own little cheese factory wherever you may be. Even if you don't, start making cheese in your own kitchen. Anyway, that's all for me this week. We will have another episode next week, and it will be with Tutu Saad, and he lives in Bangladesh. So stay tuned for that episode. Well, thanks for listening, Curd Nerds. You'll find my cheese making video tutorials on YouTube, and just look for Gavin Weber or type in cheeseman.tv. You can get your cheese making kits, supplies and equipment over at our shop at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. If you'd like a personalised message from me, I am available to book via Cameo. Just search for Cheeseman TV. So stay tuned for the next exciting episode of the Little Green Cheese podcast. During this podcast, you heard royalty-free music by Kevin MacLeod. I played Malt Shop Bop and Call to the Dairy Cows. See you later. Bye.